Many games have us take up the role of a badass hero who saves the world from aliens, zombies, or whatever monsters there may be. But some games offer an interesting twist to this narrative, with unconventional methods that don't really involve guns, blades, or hand to hand combat in any way. Created through a collaboration between Spanish indie devs Inverge Studios and Chibig Studios, Creatures of Ava has you play as Victoria Vic Hamilton, a scientist who crash landed on the beautiful world of Ava in the hopes of saving the people and animals from the withering, a sort of infection that is not only killing the environment, but's also turning the animals aggressive. Ava is absolutely breathtaking. Exploring the grasslands at the beginning is a treat, but what's exciting is that the devs give you up to 4 different biomes to explore, each with their own wildlife, quests, and obstacles that you can encounter in your exploration. Exploring these biomes is a ton of fun, as there are a bunch of secrets left behind by an old civilization, labs abandoned by previous humans, and lots of great spots to just stand and take in the sights. As what you gather from the name, creatures are the stars of the show in this game. The wildlife is very diverse, with each biome having its own cast of cute animals that are all very well designed and are largely based off of existing animals we have in real life, save for a few exceptions. But not everything in Ava is scenic and breathtaking, as we still have the withering to worry about, which acts as the primary obstacle throughout your exploration of this world through what is called Witherbloom. And although the wildlife look really cute, I mentioned that the infection can make some of them aggressive, and this is where the game's combat comes in. But combat may not be the appropriate word here. The interesting twist in this game is that these infected animals are not treated as enemies, but rather they are patients that have to be treated. Luckily, we have 3 tools to help us do just that. First, we need to gather information of these animals, and the way to do that is with the camera. Taking photos is a great way to capture moments in the game, but it's also how you unlock information about the animals, as you can take a photo of them in their normal state, as well as their infected state, to learn about their moves and prepare for them. Second is how to cure them. Early in the game, Vic stumbles upon a ruin where she finds an artifact passed down by an earlier civilization that seems to be able to remove the infection. This staff becomes your primary tool to cure these poor animals and make them docile again. As you progress, you get more abilities to help you during these encounters, as animals aren't just going to sit by as you remove the infection. Once they're cured, you then get to use the third interesting tool, which is the flute. Kinda like the Pied Piper, the flute acts as a way to tame these animals, allowing you to get their help when traversing the world and removing obstacles. This also allows you to herd them around towards these obstacles and into what they call rescue robots to take them into the BioArk, which is kind of like Noah's Ark, and is how Vic and her partner Tabitha plan to preserve the wildlife in Ava. Using this flute is immensely satisfying, by the way, and at certain points, I had myself a little army of animals just following me around, and playing around with the flute outside of taming is also a fun time, especially if you have some basic knowledge about scales. Last, and definitely not least, using the flute also allows you to pet them, which I believe is a feature that we are sorely lacking in many games. If you feel like you don't really want to worry about the combat though, don't worry. You can play in story mode, which makes combat a lot easier so that you can just focus on the plot and petting animals. Besides the animals, there's of course the local population that you aim to save, called the Nam. The Nam have a very interesting culture and quite literally have a connection to their world. Not too different from the Na'vi in Avatar, I suppose, and they've had interactions with humans in the past, which is how they're able to communicate with you. They also present some thought-provoking ideas throughout the story that I won't spoil, but generally one of the main conflicts in the game is how the Nam seem unwilling to save themselves even if the world is dying, with only one of them willing to help you in finding a solution. So we have a beautiful world, cute animals you can pet, and an interesting plot with some great themes, but there are certain issues that made the experience a little rough for me, even when there are a lot of strong points. First is that there are quite a number of bugs. Thankfully, none of them are game-breaking in my experience, but they are kinda distracting and sometimes a little annoying, as there were a number of times where the animals would clip through the environment or get stuck randomly and won't move. A couple of patches would likely fix these though, so I wouldn't worry about them too much moving forward. The second is that I find a lot of the quests a little bland, and some are quite tedious. To me, the game's plot and themes are amazing, but it kinda suffers from the inconsistent pacing, and also from what I personally call the marathon problem. I don't know if there's another term for it already coined, but it's basically instances where you're made to run across the map just to talk to someone, only to be made to run back to where you were before to use that information in a puzzle, or worse, made to go somewhere else to talk to someone who can actually help. It's not too bad in this game, but it can be a little annoying when it happens because I'm already invested in the story, and too many lull times in between these can kind of take me out of that. There are side quests to give you some opportunities to learn about the lore and different characters, but I personally didn't find them very engaging, so your appreciation might vary in this case. Lastly, the combat encounters kinda get old after a while, which I kind of understand because I think it's a product of the intentionally chiller nature of the combat system. Sure, there are a few things the game does to keep things fresh, like using skills, learning to adapt to moves from newer animals you encounter, but the formula is generally just holding down the staff button, using one or two moves to immobilize the animal, and the occasional dodge to avoid attacks, with late game creatures just having a larger health pool. I kinda wish there were more complex encounters where you need to do a little puzzle solving, or like stronger variants of certain animals like an alpha, or maybe even like an oversized animal that requires unconventional tools or help to remove the infection. There's like one boss animal in the game, and the way you beat it isn't any different from regular encounters, which was a little disappointing for me. Don't get me wrong though, this is an extremely charming game, and despite my personal misgivings about pacing and gameplay, I think its take on combat gives me a different sense of satisfaction from the usual slashing and gunning we get from other games. There were a lot of great ideas here that can be fleshed out in a sequel or a different title in the future, and I'd love to see more complex mechanics in combat, or maybe in traversal, like the ability to mount animals through different terrain, for example. And Verge, call me, I have ideas. I found the world immensely satisfying to explore, and the story, though not the most mind-blowing plot I've ever encountered, presents a unique twist to the saving the world story we've seen numerous times before. You'll just need to trudge through a bit of tedium here and there along the way before you can get to the emotional payoff in the end. But in my opinion, I suggest you just try it out for yourself to see if the game suits you well enough. The game's out now on PC and Xbox through Steam and Game Pass, so check it out when you get the chance. If you played it already, let me know down in the comments what you think about the game, and if you think I missed anything important. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. This is Sai, and I'll catch you again in the next one.